Good morning. Can you hear me? It's okay. I hope you had a good session yesterday. Good evening. I'm very happy, proud to be here with you this morning, and so to deliver this keynote speech. Well, at Keolis, you may know we are a €5 billion company. We deliver services in 15 countries, including, if I'm not mistaken, 5 states here in Australia with our partner Donor, so as Keolis Donor, among which in 4 states with Jonathan, bus services. We also deliver bus services in a number of countries, including Belgium, France, the Netherlands, Denmark, Sweden, Canada, the US. And so, of course, it's of utmost importance for us to try to forecast the future and to understand what this future could be from a public transit standpoint, from a mobility standpoint, and of course, from bus operation standpoint. So I may start with a small video. And you may have read that we have just launched a trial in La Trobe University in Melbourne 2 days ago. So the question is, will the future look like this? And, well, you know, as a French humorist once said, forecasting is very difficult, especially when it deals with the future. The question is, and the answer is not easy. So we may have this discussion together. I may share with you some thoughts about it. In fact, 3 of them. The first one is, at Keolis, we are convinced that we are facing a kind of a revolution, at least a profound transformation in mobility services in the next few years. That's our belief. We also consider, and that's the second one, that it will provide us with a lot of new business opportunities. We don't consider them as threats, we consider them as new opportunities. And that's the third point, providing that, of course, we adapt ourselves, we change, we drive change, and we leverage these new technologies through innovation. And this will be the agenda of my speech. So, why a profound transformation? The first thing is, of course, we face a growing demand worldwide. You may know these figures. More than half of the mankind is living in cities today. In fact, 2/3 of them will live in cities by 2060 or 2050. It means that there will be an additional 2.5 billion people in cities worldwide in the coming years. It also means that half of them will live in cities more than 500,000 inhabitants, so large cities. And just to give you a last figure, today there are around 28 megacities over the world, meaning cities over 10 million inhabitants. There should be 41 in 2030. So that's the first thing, it's growing demand, growing mankind in cities. Second thing is that we are facing a lot more diversity in the way people travel on a daily basis. We used to think that people were traveling for commuting for job purposes, to go to school. Now we run a lot of studies, to understand where our customers are going. That's called chaoscopy in Keolis. And basically, we understand that only 20% have a very regular back, going in the morning and in the evening, to their local destination and back to their home. 20%. It does mean that 80% are not fully regular. They go other timing, other destination, and so of course we need to adapt to this demand. Third thing is, and I think we are all convinced in this room, is the fact that private car is not a solution. There are around 1 billion private cars globally, but there are 7 billion people, close to. So we don't consider the solution being to multiply by 7 the number of cars in the streets. I don't think it will provide additional mobility to the people, in fact. So first thing is growing demand, a changing demand. Of course, the other one is new trends, new technologies in mobility. So let's speak about a few of them. In fact, 5 of them. The first one, of course, is the use of the smartphone. Someone said that, the most important innovation since the wheel is the smartphone for mobility. Of course, it provides people with real-time data, the possibility to get the information right, to book the ticket, to book the vehicle, to pay, etc., etc. The second one is the raising of communities and the way people share resources today. And that's quite new. So I think it's a new economy. The third one, which is linked to the previous one, is the monetization of private assets. We see it in hospitality with Airbnb. We see it, of course, in our industry with a number of new services. Another one is the way we employ people. There is new employment forms, especially self-employment, which is rising. And the last one, but not the least, of course, but it's only one among 5 of them, is new technologies in automotive. Cars, shuttles, buses are becoming connected, of course, electrical, more and more, and in the future, and we see it autonomous. So these are the drivers for this transformation, raising demand on one side and new trends and technologies on the other side. So I'm speaking about new business opportunities. What does this mean? We consider at Keolis that these new trends, these new technologies, will enable us to better serve our customers, to provide better solutions, better answers to people needing mobility services on a shared mobility basis. And that's the keyword. It's about to share mobility so that we can enable mobility services the right way with all the benefits we can see in sharing. What does mean new and better services? First, providing door-to-door services which will be customized to people's needs. We all know that we have some issues to deliver door-to-door services, especially when we are a little bit far from the CBDs, from the inner city districts. Second thing for us is to be able to address all people's needs. So people with specific needs, disabled people, also to be able to provide services to all areas, all timings, and as I mentioned, this is particularly true for mid-dense areas or suburban areas. The third point is, of course, to reduce or to optimize costs for the community. How could we deliver such services with a lower expending, either for the passenger or for the community? And the third one is to avoid, of course, private car usage. It does mean that we would reduce the overall costs for the people, we'll reduce congestion, and of course we'll improve and avoid environmental consequences. So we see it as a bright future. Now the question, and that's the third point, is how do we achieve this? And so in Kelis, we consider there are at least 3 elements of our strategy to meet this, what is at stake now, and to deliver these new services. The first one, which is very important, is about simplifying the customer experience. We consider this has to start and end with the customer experience. It's maybe the most important point, as we see mobility as being more and more a customer-driven market. So basically, customers will have more and more choices, how they get mobile, how they move themselves, and so we really need to put, as we say, the customer at the core. We call it think like a passenger. So it's about providing real-time information to people. It's about giving them a more simplified way of getting the ticket, mobile ticketing. It's about, also being able, for example, to use the banking card in the public transit. So a few initiatives we have been undertaking in the last 2 to 3 years, which are now more and more mature. To give you some example, we partner with Moovit, an Israeli startup, which is a global free app for public transit. Around 90 million daily users worldwide. 78 countries are covered. Every 16 hours, they open a new city in the world. We also partner with a French startup called Connexins to be able to connect the bus stops for you as a passenger to get real-time information when you are at the bus stop. These people are deployed in 7 countries, 60 cities, and they deployed 130,000 beacons so that you can interact between your mobile and the bus stop. So how do we get the bus stop connected? That's the answer for us. And then you get real-time information about your travel. Third example, we developed a trip planner, a real-time trip planner called Navicia. It's 7 billion queries a year now, so we are running it industrial scale. We also developed mobile ticketing with 2 partners, one from the UK for barcode, for QR code, the other one from France for the optical readers. So we install them in light rail, we install them in buses, so you can use and validate your ticket on a mobile ticket, barcode ticket solution. And a last example, in France, we'll launch our first network being able to use your banking card by entering the bus or the light rail, the tram, early next year. So more and more we'll be able to use the banking card as a payment and validation access methodology to our services. So this is what we consider some example about being able to simplify the passenger experience. That's more about the passenger. Now the other point is, of course, to provide additional mobility services. What does it mean? In Kelis, we decided mainly to invest for the time being in 2 new areas. The first one is what we call ride pooling. So it's what we do with Routematch here or with Via, US-based startup starting in New York. To give you just a few examples about Via, they run 1.5 million rides a month in the US, a community of close to 850,000 members today. And with them, we have launched the service. It's live in Paris for a few months now, starting in April this year. So you are able to travel across Paris for a flat fare of €5, 24/7 on a shared car. So this is about ride pooling. Of course, the other is about autonomous shuttles. So you have seen the video here. We partner with a French startup called Navia. And here, they provide, in fact, 2 vehicles. The one you have seen on the video is the shuttle, 15 people. But they also just announced a new vehicle, a kind of a robo-taxi, 6 people, 6 seats, which has just been announced November the 7th in France, and which will be demonstrated in this CES, next CES, January 18 in Las Vegas. So basically, for the time being, they have deployed 45 shuttles worldwide and carried 170,000 passengers. With them, we launch services. Oops. Sorry. Is it better? Yeah? Okay. We launch services in different countries. We launch services in France, in the 2 cities, Lyon and Paris, You've seen in the video Las Vegas, and we are back live in Las Vegas for a few days now, and this will last until the new CES. Also, we had a trial in the UK, in the Olympic Park in London, and as I mentioned, we just launched a trial in Melbourne, La Trobe University, and we should be able to launch also in Canada, in Terrebonne, trial right after the winter. So we don't start with the snow, just to start with in Canada for the winter, but right after. So this is more about, and we'll come back maybe with your questions about the new solution we can provide. Now the third point, so the first one was simplifying the customer experience. The second one was to provide additional mobility services to answer, specific needs. The last one, which is very important for us, is of course to combine them together. That's what we call, multimodality. And we consider in the future, on one side, there will always be a need, of course, for capacity. Remember the figures I give you at the beginning of my speech, a large number of people to be, transported every day in large cities, in medium-sized cities, in territories. So there will be more and more room for, of course, heavy modes on one side, but also strong bus lines on the other. But on the other side, for last-mile connectivity, to complement the service, we consider there is a lot of value to integrate the services together. Of course, public transit services across, I mean train and metro and light rail and bus systems, also, of course, bicycles, and then these new mobility services being either ride-pooling or autonomous shuttles for last mile. And you may have seen that we'll be delivering service in Newcastle, New South Wales, quite shortly now. And of course, here it's an example where we combine a bus, light rail, and ferry, which is a good start. And we expect, of course, to be able to combine more and more mobility services in the future. So, as a conclusion, I would just emphasize one point, which is the fact that we consider at Keolis that to achieve this, partnering with the PTAs will be absolutely crucial, even more crucial than ever, because we consider the need for regulation will not decrease. The need for regulation will increase, in fact. Of course, there will still be a need for public funding to get the infrastructure, especially for heavy modes, but also for bus systems. Of course, we'll still need, subscription and to get everybody, enabling everybody, even low wages, to get into our transportation system. And that's, of course, from a social standpoint, very important for us. It also does mean that this integration, this multimodality mode of thinking, of course, has to be decided, has to be emphasized by our public authorities, by PDAs. And of course, when we speak about technology, AV technologies, autonomous vehicle technologies, two things. The first one is, of course, we need the legislation to adapt step by step, and we'll know it will be a full journey. And we have more and more examples. We learn a lot from this experimentation, from these trials, and there will be more and more to think about, to decide, to regulate about the usage of autonomous shuttles, autonomous vehicles in public transit, in regular traffic also. But also the fact that, and that will be my final word, with autonomous vehicles, in fact, we don't know if there will be less or more vehicles on the streets. And there are a number of simulations where we may consider that we may end with more vehicles, not less vehicles, which of course may not be, the objective we should have. So we also consider that regulation, especially in cities, will be even more important with autonomous vehicle and new technologies. Thank you.
We've probably got time, Laurent. Thank you for that presentation. It's got a lot of questions going through my head, but we've got time for one question, perhaps, if anybody would like to put a question to Laurent. Well, I might take the opportunity myself. What was going through my mind in the third point you made at the end there was the role of contracts, the way we handle our contracts here in Australia to allocate the rights to operate in our cities and regions, where you've got somebody who's doing the service integration in a sense as a broker, playing that role, but and also as a service provider of some of those individual services that might be combined in the packages. What do you think the main implications of the way this field might evolve in coming years is going to be for the length and the nature of the contracts that governments write with operators?
Okay. First thing, I think it will mean that PTAs will have to, or public authorities will have to get a full view of regulation. And so we may not split, on one side the public transit, on the other side how we regulate the traffic or the cars in cities and territories. So there should be a kind of global, thinking from the PTA, from the public, on how do I want to enable people to move in the city, in the territory. And then as a consequence, we see more and more requests to get, this integration being executed at the contract level. If I give the example of France, in France, we are awarded, in large cities for the full spectrum of public transit, and not only public transit. So it does mean that if we take Lyon or Bordeaux or any large city in France where we operate in, we operate the buses, we operate the tram, we operate the metro, we operate the bicycle, maybe some ferries or at least on the river. And so it does mean that we move to a position where we can have a better value proposition, a more advanced discussion about distribution, about marketing, about customer service, about multimodality with the PTA. And as a consequence, we take more responsibility for the commercial revenue, for ticket sale. So this is more or less, I would say, the French model. We see it having more traction in different countries, both in Europe, in the US, and maybe also here in Australia. So it may be one way of making, I will say, more integrated services in the future.
Indeed. Just slightly tongue-in-cheek, do you think there might be more opportunities for Australian companies to actually win contracts in France going forward?
Well, the French market is open. In fact, when you look at the different countries, it varies from country to country. In some countries, the rail is open and the public transit is not, like Germany. In France, it's more or less the opposite. It does mean that public transit is open for competition, apart from Paris, and rail is not. Okay. Now, I have to say that based on what I just said about the complexity of the services we deliver in France, it appeared to be quite difficult for foreigners to enter the market. So it's more or less a competition between French companies in France, with some people coming either from the UK or from Switzerland, for example.
Thank you very much. We'll hear from you again. Please thank Laurent for his presentation.